I was sitting in my apartment at 2 in the afternoon, phone in hand, about to text someone I barely knew. My heart was racing, not from excitement, from the familiar restlessness that had been running my life for months, that pull toward distraction disguised as connection, the heat in my chest wanting immediate release. Then I saw the book on my desk, Jung's Symbols of Transformation, bookmarked at a page I'd read 3 times but never really understood. The passage about libido, about sexual energy being creative power in concentrated form, about how the same force that drives you toward another person's body could build cathedrals, write symphonies, change the world. I put the phone down, not from discipline, from recognition. That restless heat wasn't seeking sex, it was seeking expression. And I'd been feeding it the weakest possible outlet for 18 months straight. For 18 months, I'd been channeling everything into romantic pursuit. Dating apps, late-night texts, weekends, dissolving into distraction. I was very busy. Yet, I produced nothing that mattered. My body wasn't dormant, quite the opposite. But creatively, professionally, spiritually, I was completely stuck. That afternoon, I finally understood what Jung actually meant. Sexual energy isn't just about sex, it's libido psychic energy itself, the fundamental life force that can take 1,000 forms. What you feel as sexual desire is simply one possible channel for this deeper current. And you can redirect that current, not suppress it, not shame it, transform it. This isn't about repression. Jung despised repression. This is about conscious transformation, the difference between a dam that will inevitably break and a hydroelectric plant that converts raw force into sustainable power. Most people encounter Freud first. Freud saw sexual energy as the primary drive beneath everything art, neurosis, civilization. When you sublimate sexual desire into work, you're essentially tricking your instincts, creating a pressure release valve, managing the unmanageable. Jung studied with Freud, then broke away because he saw something Freud didn't. Jung understood that sexual energy is actually a specific expression of a much larger force he called libido, not physical energy measurable in joules. Psychic energy, the fundamental vitality animating consciousness itself. Sometimes it expresses as sexuality, sometimes as hunger, creative drive, intellectual curiosity, spiritual longing, competitive fire, or simply the urge to move through space. Critical insight, these aren't separate energies competing for resources. They're one energy taking different forms depending on where consciousness directs it. Think of water. Steam, liquid, ice. Same H2O molecules, radically different properties depending on temperature and pressure. Water doesn't disappear when it becomes steam. It transforms. Understanding the conditions governing transformation lets you work with the process rather than against it. When I scattered energy across dating apps and dead-end connections, I wasn't using sexual energy and separately failing to access creative energy. I was directing my single reservoir of psychic energy toward immediate, surface-level gratification. The same energy that could have powered months of focused work dissipated in shallow exchanges leading nowhere. Understanding this distinction changed everything. Not because I became asexual or disinterested in intimacy, because I recognized I had a choice about where to direct the current. Here's what most content won't tell you. You cannot simultaneously pour full intensity into sexual pursuit and creative achievement. Not because sex is shameful, but because you have one pool of psychic energy and attention is the valve controlling its flow. Jung observed this constantly in patients. The artist obsessed with a new lover who stopped painting for months, the businessman in an affair whose company stagnated, the writer unable to finish her novel because every evening dissolved into romantic drama. They weren't lazy. They were directing available energy exactly where attention commanded. The reverse was equally true. After relationships ended, the same artist would suddenly produce their best work in years. The businessman would close the most important deal. The writer would finish the novel in 6 weeks. Not because heartbreak is inspiring, because energy channeled into relational intensity was now available for other purposes. This is the key unlocking everything Jung wrote about transformation. You're not fighting desire, you're consciously choosing which form you want your fundamental life energy to take. Jung identified the transcendent function, the psyche's natural capacity to hold opposing forces in consciousness until a third possibility emerges. Not compromise, not balance, actual transformation into something new. Sexual energy and creative energy appear opposite. One pulls toward another person, physical union, dissolution of boundaries. The other pulls toward isolation, sustained focus, creation of something distinct, merge versus separate. The tension is real. Most people resolve tension by choosing one and repressing the other. They become either consumed by romantic pursuit or walling off desire entirely for work. Both approaches fail because repression always costs more energy than transformation. What you push into the unconscious doesn't disappear. It waits, gathers pressure, erupts. I learned this directly. During my blocked period, I tried repression first, deleted apps, told myself I needed focus, created strict rules about no dating until finishing projects. Lasted 3 weeks. Then I met someone at a coffee shop, and within days I was more distracted than ever, precisely because I'd forbidden it. The transcendent function works differently. Instead of choosing between sexual desire and creative drive, you hold both in consciousness simultaneously. You feel the pull toward connection and toward creation without immediately acting on either. You sit with the tension, let it build, and in that sustained attention, something shifts. Desire doesn't go away, it changes. Energy wanting to express as pursuit begins expressing as intensity of focus. Longing seeking another person becomes longing to give form to what's inside you. The heat remains, but direction transforms. Here's the practical sequence as I've experienced it. First, notice when sexual energy arises, not just physical sensation, but the entire constellation, restlessness, seeking, the sense that satisfaction exists somewhere outside yourself. Don't judge it. Don't act immediately. Observe with precision. Second, ask what this energy wants to do. Not in the surface sense, obviously, it wants sexual expression, but deeper. What is the restless quality seeking? Usually, intensity, novelty, feeling fully alive, dissolution of the normal, bounded self. These are the real desires beneath surface desire. Third, identify another arena where those qualities could be experienced. For me, writing. The intensity of finding the exact right word, novelty of unexpected connections emerging, feeling fully alive when a paragraph clicks. Dissolution when I'm so absorbed, the normal self disappears. Fourth, consciously redirect attention toward that arena, not as substitute or consolation prize, as the actual object of desire. This is where most people fail, because they try forcing it. You cannot force transformation. You can only create conditions and allow it to happen. The conditions are simple. Sustained attention without action. When you feel sexual energy arising and immediately reach for your phone to text someone, you've collapsed transformation's possibility. Energy discharges into that action, gone. But if you feel it arising and sit with it, stay present, let it build while keeping attention steady, the energy has nowhere to go but deeper. This is holding the tension of opposites. Sexual energy wants release. Creative drive wants sustained focus, both present, neither denied. In that sustained presence, the transcendent function activates. I've watched this happen dozens of times. The specific sensation is unmistakable once you know it. Restless sexual energy begins to shift, doesn't disappear, concentrates, becomes denser, hotter, more focused. Then, quite suddenly, it's not sexual energy anymore. It's creative fire. Same intensity, same heat, completely different direction. When you create from that transformed state, what you produce has different quality. It's alive, it vibrates. People feel it. even if they can't name why. Because you're not creating from discipline or duty. You're creating from eros itself, from fundamental life force, consciously channeled. This is what Jung called individuation. Not becoming idealized, but becoming capable of consciously directing your own psychic energy rather than being driven by unconscious compulsions. Here's what shallow versions won't tell you. Transformation requires real sacrifice. When you redirect sexual energy toward creative work, you actually give up immediate gratification for uncertain future results. That cost is real. The psyche knows it. If you pretend otherwise, the unconscious will sabotage your efforts. Jung identified the shadow as the repository of everything disowned, denied, refused to integrate. When you start consciously transforming sexual energy, your shadow presents every reason why this is foolish, unhealthy, doomed. The shadow reminds you life is short, that you're missing connection, that intimacy matters more than creative output, that you're just afraid of vulnerability, that this transformation project is intellectual defense against feeling. These objections aren't wrong. They're partial truths, making them more dangerous than obvious lies. Yes, life is short. Yes, connection matters. Yes, there's a version of this that is defensive avoidance. The shadow's arguments have teeth because they contain genuine wisdom mixed with self-sabotage. I encountered my shadow 6 weeks into my first serious transformation attempt. I'd been writing daily, producing more in 6 weeks than the previous 6 months. The work was good. Then I met someone at a party who looked at me, triggering every suppressed longing I'd been holding. Within 3 days, abandoned writing schedule. Within a week, obsessing about text patterns. Within 2 weeks, convinced myself I'd been repressing authentic needs, and real life was about connection, not solitary creation. The shadow doesn't announce itself. It arrives as your own thoughts, perfectly plausible, emotionally resonant. The only way to work with it, recognize it without either believing completely or rejecting entirely. Jung's method, active imagination. Engage the shadow as if it were a separate person. Have a dialogue. Let it make its full case. Then respond from conscious ego's perspective, not to defeat the shadow, but integrate its wisdom while refusing its sabotage. I started writing dialogues. Shadow, you're becoming isolated and weird. Normal people don't redirect sexual energy. Me, what makes you think I'm not living? I'm more alive in 3 hours of focused creation than 3 months of scattered pursuit. Shadow, you're afraid of intimacy. This whole project is sophisticated avoidance. Me? Maybe. But I've had plenty of intimacy leading nowhere. Let me try intensity that builds something. These weren't one-time conversations. They're ongoing. The shadow doesn't surrender. It evolves. But so do you. What I discovered, shadow's resistance points towards something crucial. The sacrifice must be acknowledged. If you try transforming sexual energy while pretending you're not giving up anything, the unconscious creates symptoms, anxiety, compulsive behaviors, sudden intense attractions derailing everything. But if you consciously acknowledge the sacrifice, I am choosing to redirect this energy. And yes, that means not pursuing immediate sexual satisfaction. And yes, that costs something. The shadow relaxes. It's been heard. Sacrifice witnessed. So I created ritual. Every time I felt strong sexual energy arising and chose to redirect it toward creative work, I'd sit for 2 minutes and consciously acknowledge what I wasn't doing. Wasn't texting that person, wasn't opening the app, wasn't pursuing that attraction. Felt the loss. Not dramatically, but genuinely. Then said internally, this energy goes toward creation instead. I make this choice consciously. That small ritual changed everything. Shadow's sabotage diminished. Not because I defeated it, because I'd integrated its concern. But Jung added another layer. The sacrifice must be proportional and time-bound. If you try redirecting all sexual energy forever, you're not transforming. You're repressing under spiritual pretense. The psyche will revolt. The question isn't, should I never pursue sexual connection? It's, what serves my deepest development right now? Sometimes sustained creative focus, sometimes genuine intimacy. The key is conscious choice rather than unconscious compulsion. Jung also argued transformation isn't ultimately about suppression or redirection. It's about recognizing what that energy actually seeks. And what it seeks isn't another person. It's an encounter with a contrasexual dimension of your own psyche. For men, Jung called this inner feminine the anima. For women, the inner masculine is the animus. Not social gender roles, archetypal dimensions of consciousness existing in everyone. The anima is soul, feeling, relatedness, receptivity, the imaginal realm. The animus is spirit, meaning direction, assertion, capacity to articulate and act. Sexual desire, in Jung's view, is often projection of this inner opposite onto an external person. You meet someone embodying everything you're not. If you're intellectual, they seem instinctual. If you're structured, they seem spontaneous. You feel magnetic pull, the sense that union with them would make you complete. Jung's radical claim, that pull is your psyche trying to unite with itself. The external person triggers awareness of what's undeveloped in you. Intensity you feel is proportional to how split you are from your own inner opposite. Sexual union never fully satisfies the deepest longing because the real marriage needs to happen internally. I realized every person I'd been intensely attracted to shared qualities, spontaneous where I was planned, emotionally expressive where I was controlled, artistic where I was analytical, comfortable with chaos where I craved order. I wasn't attracted to variety. I was attracted to the same archetype repeatedly. Jung would say I was projecting my anima. The dimension of my psyche I'd rejected or underdeveloped appeared externally as irresistible attraction. The transformation process isn't redirecting sexual energy away from people. It's withdrawing projection and developing the inner quality directly. When you develop your own spontaneity, emotional expression, artistic sensitivity, comfort with chaos, compulsive attraction to people embodying those qualities diminishes. Not because you're no longer interested in others, because you're no longer desperately seeking in them what you lack in yourself. This is the inner marriage Jung referenced. Union of conscious and unconscious, masculine and feminine dimensions within a single psyche. When that begins happening, sexual energy transforms naturally, no longer driven by lack. It becomes an expression of fullness seeking connection rather than completion seeking its other half. Let me translate this into immediate practice. Theory without application is just philosophy. Step 1. Recognition. Develop capacity to notice when sexual energy arises before automatically acting. Most people move from impulse to action in seconds. You need space between the two. Practice. When you feel sexual desire arising, pause 60 seconds before doing anything. Don't judge, just observe with precision. Where do you feel it in your body? What thoughts accompany it? What does it want you to do? Step 2. Discernment. Ask honestly, is this desire serving my deepest development right now, or is it distraction from something I'm avoiding? Practice. Journal 3 questions whenever strong sexual desire appears. What am I creating right now? What am I avoiding right now? What would serve my deepest growth right now? Step 3. Choice. Once you've recognized and discerned, make conscious choice. Either act on it or transform it. Both valid depending on situation. Key is choice rather than compulsion. Practice. Say out loud, I choose to, followed by your decision. Verbalization makes choice conscious rather than automatic. Step 4. Transformation technique. When you've chosen to redirect sexual energy, you need specific practice. Practice options could be, firstly, intense physical exercise. Channel energy into movement. 20 minutes of running or lifting with full attention transforms sexual heat into physical vitality, fueling creative work. Secondly, creative expression. Writing, painting, music, whatever your medium. Start immediately while energy is present. Don't wait for calm. Create from the heat itself. Thirdly, contemplative practice. Sit in meditation, but instead of quieting desire, breathe into it. Feel it fully, let it build. Watch it transform. Step 5. Integration. After successfully transforming sexual energy into creative output, take 5 minutes to acknowledge what happened. Practice. Write one paragraph describing the transformation, what you felt, what you chose, what emerged. This reinforces neural pathways, makes the process easier next time. Step 6. Shadow dialogue. When you fail, when you collapse back into compulsive behavior, don't judge, investigate. Practice. Write dialogue between the part wanting transformation and the part that sabotaged it. Let both speak fully. Usually you'll discover sabotage was protecting something, and once protection is addressed consciously, behavior changes naturally. Now let me tell you what emerges when you do this work consistently. Your creative output accelerates, but more importantly, it deepens. You're not producing more content from the same shallow source. You're accessing layers previously unavailable. Your relationships change. Desperate quality disappears. You can be intimate without losing yourself, alone without loneliness. You attract different people, ones operating from fullness rather than lack. Your sense of time shifts. Hours of focused work pass in what feels like minutes. Flow becomes more accessible and sustainable. Being fully absorbed in meaningful work becomes easier than distracted restlessness. Your body changes. Scattered, seeking quality manifesting as tension, jaw clenching, chest tightness, shallow breathing transforms into grounded vitality. You have more energy because you're not constantly dissipating it through unconscious compulsion. Most importantly, your sense of purpose clarifies. When driven by unconscious sexual compulsion, every decision filters through, how will this help me attract a partner? When that transforms, the question becomes, what serves my deepest development? Completely different orientation leading to completely different choices. You start making decisions from your center rather than from fear of missing out, social pressure, or unconscious need. You choose work that matters to you rather than impresses others. You pursue relationships supporting growth rather than filling emptiness. You structure days around what generates vitality rather than what society expects. This is individuation. Not becoming idealized, not achieving perfection, but becoming capable of living from your own center, informed by your own depths, in service of your own deepest calling. Here's what I've come to understand after years working with Jung's approach. It's not really about sex at all. Sexual energy is just the most obvious, accessible, immediately compelling form of life force. It gets your attention, demands to be addressed, won't be ignored. But what it's actually pointing toward is your capacity to engage with life force itself. Your capacity to work consciously with fundamental energy of existence rather than being passively moved by it. Sex is the entry point. Transformation is the process. Individuation is the goal. Beyond even individuation is something Jung could only hint at. Conscious participation in the creative unfolding of existence itself. When you learn to transform sexual energy, you're learning to transform any energy. Anger wanting to erupt becomes fierce clarity. Fear wanting to paralyze becomes alert presence. Grief wanting to overwhelm becomes deep compassion. Every form of energy, every movement of psyche becomes available for conscious transformation rather than unconscious acting out. The sexual energy you feel is life itself moving through you. It wants to create, express, manifest. The question is whether you'll be conscious of that process or unconscious, whether you'll direct it or be driven by it, whether you'll transform it into its highest possibility or dissipate it into immediate gratification. Jung spent his life exploring this question in patients' symptoms, his own dreams, world myths, depths of his own psyche. What he discovered was both simple and profound. You are not your desires. You are consciousness that can witness desire, work with desire, and transform desire into wisdom, creativity, and depth. Sexual energy is power. The question is what you'll do with that power. Most people let it scatter unconsciously into endless seeking leading nowhere. Some repress it and wonder why they feel dead inside. A few learn to transform it, and in doing so, discover what it means to be fully alive. That's Jung's secret. Not a secret hidden from you, but a secret hidden in you, waiting to be discovered through conscious engagement with the deepest forces of your own being. The energy is already there. The capacity to transform it is already there. The only question is whether you'll choose consciousness over compulsion, transformation over dissipation, power over distraction. That choice, made again and again across months and years, distinguishes a life fully lived from a life merely endured. On the other side of that choice, consistently made, consistently honored, consistently practiced, you discover you're not who you thought you were. Not the scattered, seeking, restless person driven by unconscious need. You are the one who can witness that, work with that, and transform that into its highest expression. You are consciousness itself, capable of taking this raw life force called sexual energy and shaping it into wisdom, art, service, depth, and whatever else your deepest calling requires. That's what Jung saw. That's what Jung taught. That's what becomes possible when you stop being driven by desire and start consciously directing it. The work is yours to do. The power is already yours to claim. The choice is always available in this moment and every moment that follows.